All right, story time. So I've been getting the question a lot lately. Why are there so many boarded up, rundown houses in Sault Ste. Marie? So I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to give you guys, it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to give you guys as much as I know, and it's going to kind of all start to make sense about how this all actually went down. All right, so first thing I'm going to tell you is that everything you're about to hear came from Canadian news reports and is a lot of hearsay. So nothing's been proven and everything is alleged. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, this story starts back in about 2021, right around COVID, and when the real estate market really started to take off. Some investors decided that they were going to buy up a bunch of properties in Northern Ontario. They ended up buying around 800 properties over 4 different cities in Northern Ontario. Within Sault Ste. Marie, I think they bought somewhere in and around 200 properties. So these investors had a plan. What they were going to do is they were going to buy these properties. Some of them were already run down, and they were going to renovate them, revitalize them, and bring them back to life. So over time, these guys borrowed $144 million against these 800 properties to use for renovations. And they borrowed them from private lenders, and that's important. It's not just a regular bank. They're borrowing them from regular people who maybe have a little bit of retirement savings and they want to earn some interest on it rather than just letting it sit in the bank. So what they did is they had these homes appraised and allegedly had very inflated appraisals done. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how the appraiser's not in a lot of hot water. I don't really know what's going on with that. But they were getting appraisals saying that these properties were worth a lot more than they were. So let's say, for example, they bought a property for 150,000. They're getting appraisals on these properties to say that they're worth like $300,000. Now, these private lenders believe that. They're from Toronto, where every property is worth $300,000. So they thought nothing of this. But people in the Soo were kind of confused. Why are they spending so much money on properties that nobody in town wants to buy? So what they decided to do, instead of actually renovating these properties, is they decided to live a lavish lifestyle. I've heard that they had yachts, they had private jets, they had penthouse suites in Miami, they were spending money on crazy things. But what they didn't spend money on was these houses. Now, it wasn't long until money starts running low and they stop making these mortgage payments. So by 2024, they had dozens of lawsuits against them from contractors who they hadn't paid. They have outstanding city tax bills. They have mortgage payments that they haven't been making. And now they're getting into some hot water. And this is when people start to become aware that something's a little off with this situation. They also stopped paying their utilities, meaning now we've got vacant properties that have been left unattended with no heat, no water, and no electricity. Now, to compound all these problems, Sault Ste. Marie is also being hit with a really bad homelessness and drug problem that I know is plaguing a lot of communities, especially in Northern Ontario right now. So we've got a lot of people that don't have a place to live, and we've got a lot of vacant, unattended homes. That's a problem. So nearly 90% of these properties have been broken into. These people have stolen the copper plumbing, the copper wiring, all the electrical. They've broken drywall, smashed windows. Basically, all of these properties are now ransacked. So now here we are, early 2025, and now these lenders have now been able to take back these properties. But of course, these properties that were worth 150,000 that they've lent, say, 250,000 on, are now destroyed, and they're all worth like 80,000. So now I'm one of the realtors that's been tasked with trying to recoup as much of these losses as possible. So a lot of times when we list a property that's run down or in need of a lot of repairs, we get a lot of hate for it, saying that, why would you even sell a house in this condition? But I think at the end of the day, we need to remember that, especially in this situation, the sellers of these properties really have no idea what happened to these properties. And they're actually the victims here. And they're taking really, really massive losses because of what I would consider to be a really, really big fraud that was committed. And that I assume there's probably going to be some punishment for that. But of course, everything I'm saying, again, is alleged and not proven, so who am I to say? So that's the story of how Sault Ste. Marie ended up with hundreds of rundown, boarded up properties. And that's the story of why I'm going to have a lot of those types of listings coming up, and you're going to see that in some of these videos. So we'll probably have some interesting adventures to watch. But with that being said, if you're looking for a project house, an investment, a flip, hit me up. Oh, and let me know in the comments below, what do you think should happen to these people? Like, clearly they shouldn't just get away with this scot-free. What do you think the punishment should be?